What if gravity stopped for 1 second? The answer is, it would be absolutely catastrophic, but probably not in the way you imagine. Let's start with you and your friends playing ball. The moment gravity disappears, you don't all go flying off into space immediately, at least not all at once. Earth is spinning at about 1,670 kilometers per hour at the equator. When gravity shuts off, nothing is holding you to the surface anymore. You'd continue moving in a tangential direction you were going, essentially in a straight line, while Earth keeps rotating beneath you. But wait, there's something much more urgent happening. The atmosphere isn't held to Earth anymore either. Roughly 5 quadrillion tons of air would start expanding in all directions. In 1 second, that wouldn't be enough to suffocate you, but the effects would be immediate and violent. Atmospheric pressure would drop drastically, your eardrums would burst, and you'd feel like you were being sucked upward. Not because you're rising, but because the air around you is dispersing. Now, the truly terrifying part. Earth isn't a solid, rigid sphere. Our planet is held together by gravity. The outer core is liquid, the mantle is partially viscous, and even the crust has some flexibility. Gravity doesn't just pull us down, it actively compresses the entire planet. The pressure at Earth's center is about 360 gigapascals, or 3.6 million times sea level atmospheric pressure. When gravity shuts off, that pressure doesn't vanish instantly, but the force maintaining it does. The core and mantle would start expanding violently. Think of how a compressed spring behaves when you release it. Now imagine that with material at 5,000 degrees Celsius and thousands of kilometers thick. In 1 second, the expansion would be small on a geological scale, maybe a few meters in Earth's total radius, but it would be enough to generate massive, instantaneous earthquakes across the planet. Every tectonic fault would shift simultaneously. Every volcano would erupt. Structures would collapse not because they're falling, but because the earth beneath them is deforming. The oceans are a particularly interesting case. Seawater weighs about 1,000 kilograms per cubic meter, and there's a lot of it being constantly pulled downward. Without gravity, the oceans wouldn't fall upward immediately. They'd retain their inertia, but the water wouldn't be contained in its basins anymore either. It would start spreading in all directions, creating impossible waves that move not just horizontally, but vertically as well. There's a concept in physics called escape velocity, the speed needed for an object to permanently leave a celestial body's gravitational pull. For Earth, it's about 11.2 kilometers per second. You, playing ball, probably aren't moving at that speed. So when gravity returns after 1 second, you'd be pulled back, but not necessarily to where you were. Let's do the math. If you're at the equator, in 1 second without gravity, you'd move about 464 meters in the tangential direction. When gravity returns, you'd be 464 meters away from where you should be. Several dozen meters in the air, depending on how much Earth's expansion and atmospheric dispersal pushed you upward, and you'd fall. It's not a fall back from space, but it would definitely ruin your day. What about the moon? The moon is 384,400 kilometers away and orbits Earth at about 1 kilometer per second. In 1 second, it would move 1 kilometer in a straight line instead of its normal curved path. That doesn't seem like much for such a large orbit, but it would be enough to subtly alter its orbit. Over months and years, that 1 second deviation would compound, potentially destabilizing the entire Earth-Moon system. There's an irony in all of this. You asked if we'd go floating off into space, but the truth is that floating would be the least of your worries. You probably wouldn't even have time to notice you were floating before being hit by a combination of structural collapse, planetary expansion, atmospheric dispersal, and global earthquakes. In Greek mythology, Atlas was condemned to hold up the heavens forever. I always thought it was a cruel punishment, but at least he never took a vacation. If Atlas stopped holding up the sky for 1 second, if gravity really paused for that time, there wouldn't be a world to return to. The lesson here is, gravity isn't just a convenient force that keeps us stuck to the ground. It's the invisible architect that literally holds everything in place. Every atom, every ocean, every continent, every planet, every star, everything exists in the configuration it does because gravity is constantly at work.